amazing guest. Her name is Denise Taylor. She has her own podcast, and what caught my eye about Denise, she was talking about love and pursuit of happiness, right? And those words were ring a bell with me. Why? Because I'm the person that no matter what's happening around me, no matter what's going on, I choose to cultivate happiness and the mentality that ensures that my happiness is in a form of abundance. And naturally, I was like, I've got to get in touch with Denise. I have to speak to Denise. I have to get Denise here because I know you guys who have gone through family estrangement. The one thing I know is sometimes that happiness is like a thing, is not a, what do you mean you want me to be happy? Mary, I'm not talking to this person. This person abandoned me. And you're talking about me being happiness. No, I want to stay right here and be angry. I get you. But listen to Denise and see how far we can get with this one. Okay, so Denise, please introduce yourself to my wonderful listeners.
Oh my, thank you so much for having me, first of all. It's amazing how the world becomes so much smaller when we decide to make valuable connections like the one that's happening here. I want to commend you for serving this community, a community that feels probably compromised, less than, uncertain. And we all, in some respects, can relate to estrangement simply because oftentimes relationships don't go the way we want. We can have unspoken expectations all the way to just friction and shattered relationships. And so you anchoring here to be a light is so empowering and powerful. And so I want to commend you. My name is Denise Taylor. I am the host of the podcast Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness, which really birthed, but from me believing that we could build a life that we love without apology. We often try to set ourselves up to other people's standards in terms of success. And in like manner, we are faced with challenges often that can be discouraging. They could be relationship, they could be physical challenges, they could be ailments, just something that often stands as an obstacle in the way of our life, our love, or our happiness. And so what I try to do is be a lifter of voices that brings their experiences to the platform where people can identify with the struggle and hear the testimony of overcoming and success. And so it's my pleasure to be here to talk about how we can have painful experiences, but not let it dim our light, how we can still find hope and positivity as we decide to truly embrace our life and build it to be one that we love.
Oh, I love that, Denise. I love that. Guys, did you just hear that? Tell me what she just did not say, did not resonate with you. You know, to cultivate happiness unapologetically, right?
Yeah.
Because
Very.
often when we go through traumas and dramas and things like that, we can often feel like we need some kind of permission to be happy. We almost don't allow ourselves to be happy. All right.
Yeah.
So Denise, have you ever experienced or are you familiar with family estrangement at all?
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up because as I think about my own experience, I didn't have necessarily the most ideal upbringing, though people on the outside looking in always think that, oh, they must have it great or, oh, they got it going on. But we know, all of us who are experiencing that disconnect, we know that we've got our own ish to deal with, right? We got our own stuff that we have to deal with. So when I look at the fatherless situation, from being a fatherless daughter, not in the sense of I didn't know who my dad was. I absolutely knew who he was, but he wasn't showing up as strong for me
Yeah.
as I would desire. Right. And there were so many broken promises as it relates to that, that it created a deficiency in my own understanding of who I am. In like manner, I got the mama issues too,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And so when you're dealing with
Mhm.
the friction that comes from that type of relationship, and now I find myself on the other side where I now have to be a caregiver for my mom, who I have to overcome all that baggage and face it
Mm,
head on. The elements of estrangement are like in our face, right?
right.
Because oftentimes the benefit or detriment, depends on the day, is that I don't have to be bothered with you. Right.
Yes.
The benefit of
Yes.
estrangement is when I want to shut it off and not deal with it and exclude myself from it, I don't have to be bothered. But when you have to circle back and that person needs you, and you take the heart of God that you have and you
Mhm.
force yourself to show up for them, guess what happens? You got to come face to face with your experience and the pain that surrounded that,
Mm,
and you got to deal with it, because now I can't just turn a deaf ear to it. I can't just walk away from it. It's right there.
in your
And so
face.
now, in recent day, by taking that on, it is forcing me to reckon with what
Mm,
I just kind of tried to sweep under the rug and not deal with it, right? Compartmentalize myself and say, how do I just cut myself off from that? And the interesting thing, Miriam, is this, is that all of the while I was having this successful life. I was having these successful
mm,
experiences. I was thriving, and I still had all that baggage. I still had all that junk. And we oftentimes mistake what people are dealing with as being good because we can't see under the cover, right? So on
mm,
the outside, people, they see you show up, they see you having perspectives of success, while all the while behind closed doors, you got a lot of stuff that you're dealing with. And that is why where you're anchoring in right now with the positive mindset,
yeah.
and where I anchor in with what I love to call the success superpowers, and we'll
Yes.
get into those in just a little bit, make a world of difference, because you have to transform your thinking and your mindset about it so that you can truly get to a healthy place, so that you
Mm,
can navigate what you swept under the rug, and you can navigate what you come face to face with, and you can navigate what happens behind closed doors.
yeah.
And so I think that where you're serving in the light that you're shining, and how you are being an advocate to say, show up strong for yourself. Though you have these estranged experiences, you're still valuable, is a very important place to serve.
Oh, thank you for that. That it really is. And often, I think what makes estrangement a little bit more complicated as well is that it's a very hidden thing. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. And in the end, they suffer in silence.
Mhm.
And one other thing is, it's just because if you tell somebody it's Mother's Day and someone's like, oh, how's your mom? And you just don't want to get into it. How's your dad? Or how's your brother? How's your sister? How's your grandparents?
Mhm.
And for a lot of people who have experienced estrangement, they really try to avoid those conversations. Not all, I'm just saying for some, especially when on Mother's Day, when everybody's celebrating their mums on Mother's Day, for example, you had such a, as you mentioned, the story with your mom was quite, it wasn't the most ideal. So I could
Mhm.
imagine before where you are now, where you are her caregiver, I wonder what Mother's Day would have looked like for you when in a heat of,
You know,
in time when things were quite constrained.
yeah, it's very interesting that you say that, because um and I'll just be very transparent. I don't show up with those Mother's Day posts. I don't celebrate it that same way. I show up knowing what is the right thing to do and making myself do it. And what I am working through is how to remove the pain I feel. Um, it's almost like, to your point,
Mhm.
the moments I needed to be present, I kept them isolated to
Yes.
this definitive time frame. Okay, I gotta go, I gotta do, I gotta be,
Mm.
for this weekend or for this event, or and it didn't permeate, right? So I had to train myself to create a regimented schedule. Like,
Yeah.
I am going to call once a week. I am going to do, like, I had to
Mhm.
force myself into changing my perception and my feelings towards that
Yeah.
whole situation. But it's funny you talk about Mother's Day, because this past Mother's Day, it was very apparent to me,
Mhm.
like, yeah, that's not, I'm not led to do that. Where other people are saying, that's my mama, that's it. I
Yeah.
just am not, I'm not there yet. I am
Yes.
working through my experiences. And what I am thankful for about the estrangement that I have had to deal with is
Mhm.
that I still had a relationship with God that created a moralistic and value basis for myself to
Yeah.
know what's the right thing to do. What
Absolutely.
is the right thing to do? How to show up the right way, how to serve the right way, how to be present the right way. And sometimes you have to begin with forced obedience before it becomes pleasure. You have
Yes.
to begin with the actions of making yourself do what it is that you know is the right thing to do, so that you can grow into it, right? So that you
Mm.
can grow into those behaviors and patterns. And I'll
Yes.
just be very transparent. That's kind of where I am. So
Yeah.
when I talk about the success superpowers, which for me, I believe that God has not given us a spirit of fear. He has given us power, and we have to embrace our power and go. So when I talk about the success superpowers,
Mhm.
they are the way that I train myself to get to the point of it being the pleasurable thing to do, right? So the first one is this.
Yes, I was just
We
about to
have,
ask you, can you name, because
yes,
you mentioned the superpowers earlier, and I was thinking, I need to get the names of these superpowers.
yes,
So, and I think sometimes when we give that information of what the superpowers, when we give them the name, it will click in somebody's mind of what they need to do. So if you
yeah.
can run down to me these superpowers, and I'm going to be making notes, by the way.
Okay,
What are these
absolutely. And
superpowers?
and again, the reason why I call them superpowers is God gave us power, and He is
Yes.
going to supernaturally help us, right? So
Mm.
it's not just all relied upon ourselves. It's not all within ourselves, because as I said, sometimes we have to force ourselves to obey until it becomes pleasurable. But what I have found in all the other aspects of my life, what I have found is when I do these things, I
Yes.
can grow and become successful in it. So they're not just isolated to this one path of life.
No.
You can take these and apply them to every area of your life. And today we're specifically talking about being dealing with family estrangement. So I am saying these will work for that too.
Okay.
And I am here as a testimony to you to say, I'm working these for my own benefit and good right
Yes.
now, based on the experience that I had. So, number one is this: we
Mhm.
have to see ourselves successful. The
Okay.
reason why that's important is it forces us to look for the shining star in our experience. What does great look like?
Yes.
What does a great relationship look like? What does a healed heart look like? What does reconciliation look like? What does
Mm.
me as a successful person dealing with the scenarios that I have to deal with look like, right? And once we understand what it looks like, we can begin to train our mind to
Mhm.
pursue that which is the goal. And so we have to see ourselves successful. One of the things that I once heard a really great preacher say, is that we have to visit visit our future on the canvas of our imagination.
Yes.
We have to begin to create the image, the perspective of what a healthy relationship looks like. And it may not be a healthy relationship in the context of where there's a fracture, but it's a healthy relationship in the context of the relationships that I have, right? Because we
Absolutely.
bring all this baggage of our experiences to every place that we show up. And so while I may not be able to go back and completely re-engage or completely reignite with the fractured relationships, the distanced relationships, the disconnected relationships, I can absolutely look at the relationships that I value and see them successful and see how I want to show up for them and make that
Absolutely.
my goal and my mark.
Oh, I think you just spoke on what I normally refer to as relationship intelligence. I
Mhm.
think sometimes when we are in relationship with other people, sometimes we assume we're doing the right thing by our own standards, but are we
Mhm.
actually meeting the needs of those around us? And it's good that you mentioned when it comes to success, you have to visualize that success. What does it look like in terms of how do you want your heart to feel like? How do you want your mental state? What does success in these feel like? I know for
Mhm.
myself, when I went through family estrangement, I was pretty angry. My
Mhm.
heart wasn't light as a feather, I'll call it. It was lead because whenever I felt or think about the circumstances and the people, it felt heavy. And
Mhm.
often it felt like I had something in my stomach. So I never wanted to experience that for a long time. And I knew, and believe me, I tried to bury that. And although on the outside I was focusing on other things and I'm getting on completely fine, I knew there was something that was trying to come up to the surface.
Mhm.
Because again, I hid behind the estrangement. I said, I don't care, good riddance, I don't want to see them again. I'm happy, leave me alone. And when I had my guest the previous week, he said sometimes estrangement is a form of a rebellion. You're trying to you are rebelling against difficult emotions yourself, and that's the stage that I was at. And
Mhm.
what I decided to do was to meditate. But the reason why I meditate, I guess, when you're saying you're seeking higher consciousness, prayer from God, I often find in stillness, sometimes we get that guidance, whether
Mhm.
whatever denomination someone, whether it's from however someone refer their God to be. I find that
Mhm.
we get that higher guidance when we believe in bigger. I certainly believe in bigger. We have a God that loves us, right? Some people call it the universe, whichever way you call it. But as long as you believe in bigger. And I remember thinking every time I'm in that moment of stillness, I almost have this estrangement keeps coming up. It keeps coming up to my awareness all the time. I'm sitting and trying to meditate and visualize my future, and then whoop, that circumstance pops in my head. I'm like, not today. Instead, I stopped fighting that. So I embraced that. In a moment of stillness, I would wait to come into my awareness. I won't judge. I would just let it pass. I start journaling
Mhm.
about it. And actually, this is why
Mhm.
I am today because of this particular experience. And then I became an observer of my own experiences, almost from an
Mhm.
objective standpoint, right? And
Mhm.
within the time of doing that, I realized I went through almost like a healing journey myself.
Mhm.
But definitely, when you speak of higher power, when you speak of getting to know what your heart look like, I knew I wanted my heart to feel light when I felt about the people I'm estranged from, because it was
Exactly.
very heavy. Yes.
And so that framed for you how you saw yourself successful. And I love where you ended is you saw what you wanted that to look like, right? And so you saw that, and then that became the fixed cornerstone of what you adjusted and pursued, right? What you adjusted your behaviors to drive towards, what you pursued, not only in your prayers and meditation, but in your actions as well, right? They began to manifest that way. So the second superpower
Yes.
is shake off fear. And the reason
Mm-hmm.
why I say shake off fear is I love the acronym,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty popular, that fear stands for false evidence appearing real.
Mic
We
drop.
oftentimes we oftentimes
Mhm,
set up all of these thoughts, these
mhm.
perceptions. We accept these things as truth simply because that is our understanding and the basis of what we know, right?
Yeah.
But when we want to really go for success, right? And what we saw ourselves as being successful, we have to shake off fear. And
Mhm.
fear shows up in the form of you can't have, you can't do, you don't deserve. It shows
Yeah.
up in all these different things which are attacking your ability to pursue that which you saw yourself being able to accomplish. And so when it rises up within us, we have to
Mm,
shake it off, see that it falls to the side, and allow the power within us to
mm.
illuminate so that we can indeed embrace it and go. Now, I will tell you, fear comes on strong
Yes,
because
yes.
any righteous resolve is going to be tested. Any righteous resolve is going to be tested. So when you make that determination of what success looks like and you make the decision that you want to pursue it, guess what? It's
Well,
going to be tested. It's
oh,
going to be
yes.
tested with lies. It's going to be tested with worthiness. It's going to be tested with you not feeling like you're capable of, that you're deserving, that you have enough justification, enough experience, enough education. All of those different things are going to come in. But I believe if God calls you to it, He has prepared the way for you, He has prepared
Hmm.
you for it, and He's giving you the justification that you need to pursue it. And so we have to shake off fear each and every time it shows up.
Yeah. You know, it's I love when you said that when it comes, these fear and all these circumstances will pop up to almost um confirmation bias into stopping us from moving forward, I say. And if someone's gone through, I was speaking to a friend of mine. She had gone through estrangement of her own, and she started the job with a new company. And interesting, when she started the job, she from day one, they were a group of people who she felt they almost excluded her. Other than, hi, this is the new person starting the job. How after that point, there was complete blank for the next few months of almost pretending that she didn't exist. And
Mhm,
oddly enough, she started saying, actually, this confirmed that I'm not lovable. Because
mhm,
even these people that don't even know me, they already decided I'm not good enough. So
mhm,
in a low moment, instead of looking, and that affected her job performance, it did affect her, how she perceived herself, because I've been rejected by these people, and then I'm sat in this company and they're treating me the same way. What is wrong with me?
mhm,
There must be something with me. They didn't even get to speak to me, yet they already have something against me, right? So that fear that we
mhm.
have inside with these external circumstances confirming this thing that we want to hold on to, because everything around us is taught us that we're unlovable. Now you hold on to it. So someone like that, if she's listening right now, what would you say to her?
You know, it's so incredible that you bring this up because this is the exact scenario I faced this morning.
Oh,
The exact scenario I faced this morning with someone who joined my team. It's as if you described the whole scenario, and she has since resigned, right? And she spent the weekend in her head, just like the person you described. And I'll tell you what I told her this morning is that a couple of things. Life comes to teach us. And when we have experiences, they are not to be taken personally, they are to be lessons for us so that we can learn how to navigate with that experience in our hip pocket. Oftentimes, we have bad experiences as what you described that she had before, and we mistakenly take that impression and apply it to the new thing. And
exactly.
because we look through it with that tainted lens, we are now thinking that we are the victim in this situation, that we're not worthy of standing up to it, and we discount everything that we bring to the table. And so
Yeah.
what I told her this morning was a couple of things, that you have to look at the authenticity of the situation. And while your experiences are important, you got to let people and situations show up on their own accord, right? And
Yes.
so you can't take what's happened before and use it as a tainted lens to look at what is there. When
Mm-hmm.
you know that you're walking into a situation and you have been asserted by getting the job, or asserted by earning the title, or asserted in whatever capacity, the belief is in you. Look for your allies. Look for
Yes.
people who believed in you and reach out for the help that you need. Don't just go and try to figure out it on your own, because you will resort back to what that experience gave to you and make a very rash and wrong decision for what may or may not be there. So look for an ally. Don't allow yourself to spiral. And then
Yes.
finally, you've got to know and be confident within yourself. And it is a daily process. You got to know and be confident within yourself that what you bring to the table is valuable.
It's valuable.
It is valuable. And so it's interesting that you brought up that scenario, because before I got on with you, that's 100% what
Yeah.
I was trying to help someone navigate. And that's
Yeah.
just confirmation to me that this happens everywhere, and that it's impacting people, where we are discrediting ourselves because of experiences we had, and we are now shying away from experiences because we want to protect ourselves from hurt, instead
Yeah.
of really allowing our greatness to show
To
up in a
shout through.
way that is acceptable. So that's what I would say. Look for your allies.
Yeah.
Don't discredit what you bring to the table. You are valuable, and don't allow your prior experience to become a tainted lens for what is new. Allow yourself to really embrace that refreshing newness, and allow yourself to move forward.
Absolutely. That is incredible. That is definitely the advice I had given her in the same, obviously not worded differently, but with a similar advice. But
Mhm,
also, I would like to go further and say that sometimes our brains like to pick up patterns. It makes
mhm,
connection. It makes this dot connecting the dots.
mhm,
So the familiar of, I think what I highlighted, what she was dealing with was rejection.
mhm,
And rejecting, the rejection feeling carries emotions and activates certain things within our heart and our mind and our soul.
mhm,
And when she went in our environment, that particular treatment was a perceived rejection, igniting those feelings that were already there,
mhm,
validating now, see, look at me. I'm
mhm.
completely unlovable. Nobody likes me. There's something wrong with me. And again,
Yeah.
it goes back to be deeply embedded in our mind.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is, if we allow ourselves, we can spiral and come to a conclusion that counts us out.
Yes.
And that's where it goes wrong, is that we decide to just take the blow. We decide to just take the brunt of it. And
Mm.
we discount ourselves to the point where we just remove and count ourselves out. Because in both of those situations, the one that you experienced and the one that I experienced,
Mm.
they allowed themselves to get to the point where they concluded that
Yes.
they were the factor that was wrong, and therefore I'm going to remove myself and bow out. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
whoa.
Exactly. And again, it goes back to that internal dialogue, isn't it? That
Mhm,
conversation. And
mhm,
so when you speak about the strategies about recognizing, so what kind of techniques would you put in place? Or would you advise somebody if they find themselves sinking, because it's like a sinking ship. It starts off slowly, and then before you know it, it goes out of control. The conversation, the self-doubt, the heckler inside you gets louder and louder and louder. How do you
mhm.
shut that heckler down?
So it's interesting because success power number 3 is do the work. So this fits in
Yes.
very, very nicely.
Yes.
And doing the work, whatever context that you're applying these principles to, doing the work in this particular case is taking the ownership to
Yeah.
right that wrong, right? So what I have to do is remind myself of some truths. What
Mm-hmm.
is the truth about me? And I have
Mm.
to be very intentional about taking in those truths to the point that I say them out loud so that my ears can hear them and cement in my mind, right?
Yes.
And so on a regular basis, I have a list that I go through and remind myself of my truths. Now, for me, the
Mm-hmm.
truths are, what does God say about me? Right? That is how
Mm.
I train my mind. I believe he's my creator. And if you want to know the purpose of a thing, you go back to the creator of the thing and they will tell you the purpose for which they created it. So I go back to him and say, what does God say about me? And those become my truths. And I begin to speak those things. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am loved. I am justified. Like I identify those truths so that I can uproot that lack of truth. The
Yeah.
second thing I do is allow myself time to process, but
Mm-hmm.
not to remain unsupervised for too long, right? Because
Right.
you can begin to spiral, but you need to give yourself some think time, but you don't want to remain unsupervised too long, because if you remain unsupervised too long, you will get to the point where those two women had gotten to, which is
Yes.
they are the reason why something is not right. When I say unsupervised too long, you have to fix partnership with someone that
Also an
you,
accountability partner.
yes, someone that you know can speak to you, can
Mm.
grab your attention, who you believe that can pull you out, because
Yeah.
they are the lifeline for you. Now you want to give yourself a chance to think through it, but you want to rely on your lifeline when you feel
Mm.
yourself getting so disconnected that you don't, bring yourself back. And so you
Yeah.
need that ally, you need that lifeline. And those things have been integral. Now, for me, because I serve, you serve, right? We have these platforms where we serve. We have to be very intentional of feeding ourselves. What
Yes.
do we feed ourselves? Because we can become depleted because we're pouring out,
Out.
right? We're
Absolutely.
in a vein where we're pouring out. So anyone who is like this, you have to have a strategy. What are you listening
Mm.
to? What
Mm.
builds you up? What feeds into you and keeps your thought processes strong? What helps you stay fixed and focused? And so I have a number of podcasts, sermons,
Mm.
different things that I regularly listen to edify and build me up, because I know I pour out a lot. And so
Yes.
those are different things that are a part of doing the work, right? And I wish I could say, it's just voila going to happen. Like there's a
Yeah.
magic wand. But the reality is that is not the case. And we have to do the work.
Yes. I love that. And I love you said that we have to do the work. And you know how you say that, what does God, when he made you, what purpose did he give you? Who are you from God's eyes? Now,
Mhm.
for me, my technique came beforehand, which was positive affirmations. And I am worth it. I'm kind. I'm love. Any kind of positive affirmation. What I mean, I would listen to. It was 28-minute long video of positive affirmations. It was so much so to my kids were like, oh my God, here's that voice again. I just put it in the morning. I put it in the evening, at whatever time. Everybody around the house got to hear it too, right? But it was a way to me to reprogram my mind. And another thing that I find in a situation where I could be triggered by something, because when you're going for family estrangement, sometimes it doesn't take too many months before you get a dreaded call from someone, and then you kind of have to sit there and take deep breath in and out, right? Just to, sometimes it's when we get irritated or aroused quite quickly, in that sense, our emotional triggers, our heart rate goes up. Sometimes it's about the immediate ways to calm ourselves down, to stop that negative voice getting louder and louder again after the event has ended. So thank you for sharing that, actually. And to some degree, you do similar stuff to what I do, which I have podcasts that I listen to. I've got books that I go to. And I mean, I've got literally a mountain of books, and my affirmations and meditation. They're my literally go-to. When the time of self-doubt that kicks in, on the times of other factors taking place, I go to my quiet corner. I sit down and I close my eyes.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And you know what? That feeds right into superpower number 4, which is take care of you.
Oh,
You have a
yes.
strategy and a plan, and you have a go-to that you know immediately brings you back, helps you refocus. And I think what you will also agree is it has nothing to do with manicures and pedicures. It has to
Absolutely.
do with your soul, with your spirit, with your mindset. It has to do with your physical body. It has to do with every
Mm,
aspect of who you are. And that's about developing a plan to truly take care of you. One of the things that is working against us is we function on fumes. We do
yes.
not put enough fuel. And when I say fuel, I'm not talking about food. We
No.
do not put enough fuel in the tank that we're drawing upon, and then we're running on we're
Empty.
running on empty. And so we're running on empty when it comes to our mind. We're running on empty when it comes to our soul. We're running on empty when it comes to our spirits, our finances, our professionalism. You pick an area, we're running on empty. And so it's so important to figure out what
Mm,
is impactful into edifying us. And that becomes a part of our self-care strategy. It's
mm.
way more than nails, pedicures, and massages. Now, don't get me wrong. I love all of that. Okay. So I am
Indeed.
not a naysayer of
Yeah.
nails, pedicures, and massages. But what I am saying, the depth of who you are
Mhm.
requires a plan. And
Yes.
that is prescripted by what is most empowering to you. Because
Mm.
when life comes at you, which it will,
Will.
when life
You.
comes at you, you need to know where you can go plug in.
Mm-hmm.
You know that when I get to my quiet corner and I
Yes.
close my eyes, I can get myself in check. You know how to plug into what builds you up.
Yeah.
Everyone has to identify that. And I'll tell you
Yes.
this, one of the most simplest ways to begin with it, very, very simple, is just to think about 5 things that make you happy.
Happy.
I
That's
don't
it.
really care about what it is. And I'll tell you, the first time I did that, I
Yeah.
put bacon, chicken wings, candles, Mary J. Blige
Yes.
music. And,
Yeah.
like those were the 5 things that made me happy. And
Yeah.
so when I had moments that I needed a pick me up,
Mm-hmm.
I knew 5 things that I could go to really, really quickly
Yeah.
and begin to pull myself
Stuff.
back. And one was vanilla candles. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was like, where's my candle?
Where's my candles?
That fragrance could draw me in.
Yeah.
And so it could be as simple as starting at what's my top 5 things that no
Yeah.
matter what's going on, it brings me joy. And it's not for me to judge. It's not for you to judge, because everybody's top 5 could be completely different. Someone may be pepperoni pizza and someone may be listening to opera. It doesn't
Yes.
matter.
Matter. With me, that you've heard of the expression that dance like no one's looking.
Mhm,
That's me. So
mhm,
on top of meditation, another thing that I love, and I love this, is dancing.
mhm,
So about 2 weeks ago, actually, it's 3 now because now a new week. I was particularly stressed, and just going through different life transition. It's a transitioning moment. And I was feeling it, that when you're about to transition, you're doing the right thing, but at the same time, you've got that little nagging voice in the back of your mind reminding you, have you done the right thing, etc., etc. Now, I remember us being to be so stressed. My sleeping was getting affected. I'm normally I go to bed, I close my eyes, I sleep. But this time I'm lying there awake. And for 7 days, I danced straight. I was dancing every single day without fail, and jogging every other day. Dancing, 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 putting Afro beats,
mhm,
like Afro beats.
mhm.
I literally listen to Afro beats and I dance it. I even managed to master the whole dancing sequence, like the dancing routine of Jerusalem. I was like, I am going to nail this. I danced my way out of stress as well as meditating myself out of it, and the positive affirmations. And I realized the good thing is, I think just like me and you, we are aware when we're about to enter that state.
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
fully aware when our mind is taking us in that dark path where we need to kind of navigate ourselves back up. And it's funny, not funny, it's great that you said that you need to have somebody you can call. And I remember on one of the Sundays 3 weeks ago, I called my friend and I said, I don't feel well.
Mhm.
I'm not, I can't put my finger on what it was, but I don't feel well. I'm not feeling myself. And then I immediately burst into tears. And I don't even know where that came from. I started to cry, run again. She goes, you know what? So this was a Sunday. She goes, tomorrow I'm coming, I'm picking you up. We're going for a coffee. No questions asked. She just, I'm picking you up tomorrow on your break, on my break. I'm coming over. We're going for a coffee.
Mhm.
And we sat down and she said, you know what the issue is? You think you're working too hard. I could be wrong, but I'm here to listen. And I think having somebody who's so in tune, you know, that friendship, that relational intelligence, you have these people that you can tap in, you know, in a judgmental way, and you can speak and you can just pull yourself out, and they're just there to listen. And then you get it out. So that energy has been transferred now. So I danced my way out, I journaled my way out, I meditated my way out, and I went to coffee my way out.
Yeah, I love it. Um, I love it. I love this entire conversation. Okay, so let me get to superpower number
Number
5 so
5.
we can close things out. And this one is hold fast to your faith. We cannot get weary in well doing. We cannot get weary in the pursuit of what we saw ourselves as successful, in the pursuit of shaking off fear and doing the work and taking care of ourselves. We have to remain steadfast in it. And
Yes.
that means we've got to hold on to what we believe, not what we see, because there will be days of contradiction where what I believe does not look anything
Anything.
like what I see. And
Yes.
even in those moments of when
Yes.
there are days of contradiction, we've got to
Yes.
hold on to our faith. And
Mm.
that is the peacemaker. That is the hope driver. That is the digging for determination, is what do I believe?
Believe
Because I
in.
am not going to give up on that, regardless of what life circumstances, conditions, and situations are coming
Mm.
at me. I am going to hold fast to what
Yes.
I believe. And so those are the ones that I have found to be true in
Yes.
my life. I have found that you can apply them to so many different aspects, like we did today with family estrangement. I I can't tell you how wonderful I feel this conversation has been.
No, it's been great, and thank you. The way you
Yeah.
just, the wisdom that you shared, and you know, I know you tend to work for more on the business side, but I often find that wisdom can be applied in so many areas. It's about taking that information, stitching it in, and making it in a tapestry of how can you apply this in these circumstances.
Mhm. Yeah, this was great. Um, Again, I commend you for how you're serving. Your voice is so necessary and needed, because this is the space where heartbreaking
Yeah.
situations thrive, where broken hearts are
Mm.
more common, where fractured families are more common.
Yes.
And I want to just say to you, keep plowing, keep pushing, keep serving, because it's necessary and needed. There are so many people around the world that are resonating with this message that you cannot give up. And so I just charge you to just keep going forward. And I thank you for inviting me today.
Oh, I thank you million times for coming. I mean, come on, guys. Are you guys feeling what I'm feeling? Is your heart not filled? I'm filled right now, Denise. I have to say, it's And you're right, sometimes whenever we're in this space of putting out content, especially in family estrangement, there does come a time when you do question yourself and be like, and I know I'm aware people are listening. I can see in my analytics that people are listening from all over the world.
Mhm.
And I'm pleased to see that. But at the same time, sometimes I wonder, people sometimes they don't want to be reminded that they've gone for family estrangement. They want to, there's a reason why they call it it's a silent and hidden pandemic, because it needs to be out of the focus. And also it's a counter narrative to the picture that we have of happy family, right? So, and I'm fully aware that my podcast is literally almost against the norm of what happy family is. But I'm just saying, look, nobody needs to. We have this one life. Yes, we are energetic. We are energy. We came here. We had a life before we came into this physical reality. But when we're in this physical reality, it's a very limited time, and it's good while we are here to live happy. When God put us here, He didn't want us to suffer physically, emotionally, psychologically. He wanted us to thrive, right? And sometimes we stop thriving when we believe we're not worth of the elements that allow us to thrive. So what I'm getting people here who can just give little nuggets of wisdom of how you can thrive, even though you've gone through trauma. So
Yeah,
Denise, thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with
absolutely.
me.